guys, and welcome back to another video, or welcome if it's your first time here. Today's video is more stuff to do with the Kemper. This is another requested video, all to do with my Kemper live rig, the things that I transport in, the cases, the thoughts that went into it, and just a little bit of a closer look. So as always, if you dig this video or any of the other stuff I'm putting out, please like and subscribe. It helps me out a great deal when I'm creating future videos. So I've had a few questions on here and on the Kemper user forum about my live rig, the cases that I use and stuff. So I'm going to take you through step by step my live rig, and I've got to be honest, it was a bit weird putting it away again today after not having gigs for so many months, and I couldn't even remember where certain things went. So we're learning together on the job. My live rig is made up of 4 main components, which is this, the main unit which houses the Kemper and other things. I've got like a Peli Case that houses my remote and cables and spares and all other kinds of stuff. My guitars, which I often carry in a dual mono bag or 2 hard cases depending on the gig, or 3 if I have to take an acoustic. And then the last component is the cab. So I just want to go into a little bit of my thought process in putting this together, because I think it would be interesting for anyone that's getting into it or that wants to maybe streamline their gear. So whenever I put a rig together, because I'm a massive nerd, I spent a bit of time planning it, and I had 4 criteria when putting this together, and they all kind of overlap. But so the criteria number 1 was that it had to be as easy to transport as possible. So that means as light as possible, as small as possible, but also providing the protection that it needed. Number two is that it had to be as reliable as possible. So addressing any potential points of failure and making sure they were dealt with, or at the very least there was a contingency in place. And again, like I said, these all tie together, so that's part of the safe transportation as well. Number 3 is that I have as many backups for things as possible. So again, any points of failure, I travel with spares. I'm a little bit OCD or pessimistic, I guess, but when you've been doing gigs as long as I have, anything that could go wrong has gone wrong multiple times. So I'm a little bit of a worrier when it comes to this stuff. So, and then the last criteria is that it would be modular. So for example, like when I bring the Kemper off the road, I want a rack case that's small enough to sit behind me in the studio space. For gigs where I can't use a cab, I want to be able to use it cabless. I've got an additional pedal board with some things on it that I use, but I didn't want the remote mounted on that because I don't always need it. So yeah, modular as well. So let's get into looking at each individual part. So for a kickoff, this is the rack unit that I travel with my Kemper Power Rack in. It is a Trojan by Studio Spares, not Trojan by the Condom Company. I'll put links to anything I can find the links for in the description below if you want to check it out. So this is a 6-unit shallow rack in this very stylish kind of bluey, grey, silvery type affair. I've got tape on all of my cases with my name on it and my phone number and all that stuff. This is for a number of reasons. 1, separates my gear from everyone else's when it's on the road. 2, I've actually left the case more than once in a venue, so my phone number's on it so they can phone. And the last thing is, because it's this luminous tape, there's less chance of it either getting left in a venue or left outside in a dark loading area. So let's take the front door off. So let's pop that down there. Also, nice fragile labels. Again, don't always carry our own gear, so it just means that it's not going to get stacked, loads of stuff stacked on top of it or anything. So inside the rack, we've got the main event, obviously the Kemper Power Rack. Then this is just a blanking panel. The original plan was to have some kind of spare amp modeler in there, but ultimately I went down a different route, and also it's kind of cool just that, you know, it's a little bit more ventilation, but it also ties into something around the back that we'll have a look at in a second. And then underneath we've actually got a 2-unit shallow rack drawer, which was a bit hard to come by. Again, I'll try and do like close-ups and stuff. I don't know how this is going to work. Probably making loads of work for myself in the edit later. So in the front of this, I've got guitar cable. I've got the main Kemper remote cable. I've got an IEC cable. I've got a spare set of in-ears. My main in-ears are in the Peli Case, but I keep these in here because this is normally on stage with me. So if anything happens, got my spares. And then I've got a little zippy pouch, and inside it we've got Allen keys, screwdriver, and I've also got a full backup of my Kemper. So if I need to do a hard reset at a gig, or alternatively, if a fly gig comes up and I can hire a Kemper at the other end, I can just put my stick in, put my backup in, load it up, and I've got all my sounds. So that's about it for the front. Let's turn it round. So round the back now, there's nothing particularly interesting. I've got some idiot-proof labels for dark stages and stuff. At the moment, I'm only using the main left and right output, an output to a cab and a remote. The only thing to mention here, which I think is a good thing to look at doing if you're gigging pretty heavily. When I was researching the Kemper originally, I noticed on some forums that one of very few points of contention with the Kemper was the remote jack on the back, the Cat 5 Ethernet port, and the fact that it's not locking and it's not really designed for road use, and some people had it break on them. So I decided, again, like I was talking about, minimizing points of failure. What I've done, this cable lives in the Kemper all the time for the remote, and then what it does, it routes it to an Ethercon jack down here on the blanking plate. So what that means is if this was to ever fail, all I do is replace this. I think it was £8 or something. The Kemper itself is, you know, the main jack won't fail, but also what it means is if I decided to, I could have Ethercon to Ethercon on the foot controller to make it even more robust, just plugging straight in here with an Ethercon and then one down on the foot controller. So yeah, all that is a blanking panel with a Nutric or Neutric locking Cat 5 cable. So yeah, again, a little tip for anyone, if you're on the road a lot and you want to minimize breakage, that might be something to look at. So this is the second component of the rig, the Peli Case. It's not a real Peli, it's just a knockoff one, but really does the job and fits into the being light, but you know, good protection. If I can find the link for it, I'll put it down in the description. Again, obviously my label color and name. So this is the top layer, and in here we've got the holder for my wireless pack, cables and spares up here. So got a 1/4 inch cable, iPhone cable, just in case. This is the cable I use for my wireless. Got spare patch cables. I've got a spare Ethernet cable in here in case the worst happens, backup for the remote. I've got my power supplies, again, clearly labelled and with my colours on. You'd be surprised how often these go walkies. And also the labels help, again, in like dark situations and stuff. You don't want to be plugging the wrong voltage into something because you'll be knackered. And then we've got some batteries for the wireless as well. So that pretty much covers the top layer. Let me get this foam out. So removing the foam now, we're on the lower deck. This is where most of the stuff's stored. This is my utility pedal board that I use alongside the Kemper. Again, everything is sort of idiot and dark stage proof. I've got this tape for the settings, but it's not glow in the dark. I've got little strips of actual glow in the dark tape for the buttons, and you'll see it on the Kemper remote as well. So on this, I've got a switcher to go between wireless and cable. I always have my spare guitar plugged in by cable, ready to go. So if the wireless goes down or the guitar goes down, just hit the button, I'm on the spare. This is the power supply for it all. It's just a cheapy job, but it really clean and does the job. And because these are quite current thirsty, I needed something with some juice. So this is the Vitus ISO 4. Yeah, I would recommend that actually. And then we've got the drop. So the Kemper has its own drop tune function in it, but having AB'd it, I do slightly prefer the drop. It's just something about the feel. Hard to explain, but they're both great. And I also favoured the drop because it's not then built into presets. If there's any last minute changes or a whole set needs to be, you know, dropped to semitone, all I do is on the drop and then I can leave it on. This is the Line 6 Relay G30 receiver. I was going to have a rack mount one, but I changed my mind to this because, oh, bing, message, because it's pedalboard mounted, which means if the Kemper's off out in the wings, this is as close to me as possible. Easy to monitor as well with it's got a battery status. Then I've got the Digitech Freakout, which is a great addition to using amp modelling, especially if you haven't got a cab, getting feedback. I've got my Line 6 G30 pack. The G30 is a great system, but the only thing that always fails on them is this stupid little battery door. So a bit of tape sorts that out. I've got my little in-ear box, a nice little Tupperware I found in the kitchen. The missus was well happy when I adopted this. Inside I've got my in-ears, some picks and spare earbuds. The in-ears I'm using at the moment aren't expensive at all. They are the CCA something. I think they're C10s. But anyway, they're multi-driver in-ears for next to no money. And I'm really digging those at the moment. I've never had proper moulds made, but I will do at some point. It's just I'm quite new to in-ears, only in the last couple of years. And I tend to play with one in, one out. So moulds might be a bit lost on me, but I will look at getting them done. I've got the remote here, nice and padded out, and like I said, it's got the glow tape on the up and down arrows just for a bit more a bit more visual on a gig. And then this is my Dapper Mini by Vailton, and it just provides me with amp modelling, modulation or delay and reverb. And this is the bed thing. If all else fails, if the Kemper rig goes down, anything like that, I can plug into this and get the gig done. Again, it's about having backups for everything. So yeah, that's the Peli Case covered. So on to the third component of the rig. Sorry if I'm looking a little sweaty. I forgot that I'd popped this up the loft when all the gigs got called off. So this is my mono dual gig bag. Again, my label colour, fragile marking. I've got my name and everything on it as well. So that houses 2 electric guitars. So I travel with 2 electrics, main and a spare. I'm not someone that switches guitars every other song. And I've got, again, I might have to take an acoustic to certain gigs. So I've got that in a separate hard case. The mono cases are great. They really protect, but they've also got great storage. So I don't actually know what I've left in here. As I said, I stored it away. So in the top, I've got some tools. There's some Allen keys and things in there as well. And then in the lower pocket, I've got spare cables, strings. Like I said earlier, it's good to have fail-safes for everything. And that's not just in one place either. Depending on the gig, I might not be able to access the stage. So have like prior to performance. So I take this backstage with me and it's got all tools and restringing stuff should I need it. Spare batteries for wireless and things like that. So that's the other component. I do take hard cases, again depending on the transport situation, but to be honest, I'm actually pretty happy chucking this in the back of a van. Plus with our shows, the gear's strapped down in the back, so it's not going anywhere. So yeah, mono, digging it at the moment. So on to the final component of this rig. I'm going to keep this guitar case here because it's quite good for leaning. Is my guitar cabinet. So as I said earlier, the rig's kind of modular. I don't always use a cab, but I do most of the time. I'm on in-ears, but I also like having a cab behind me pushing a bit of stage volume. I don't play excessively loud, but you know, loud enough to feel it and just to get a bit of room feeling. Also, I kind of feel like it's a bit of a backup as well. If my in-ears were to ever go down, at least I can hear myself, you know, and a bit of stage sound. So the cab that I use at the moment that's on the vans is a Jet City 112, currently loaded with a Celestion Creamback, but I'm looking to change cabs soon. That was the plan before all of this happened, and I'm either going to go for the Kemper cab, or there's a great company from down in Brighton called Barefaced Cabs who make awesome cabinets, so I was looking at getting one made by them. But we'll see what happens. At the moment, the Jet City cab's doing the job. I'll see if I can find some pictures of how this rig's set up on stage. I'm sure I've got some, but they're probably just iPhone shots. So what I do is I have the cabinet, and then the rack sits perfectly on top, which is a great feature of the shallow rack. Sits directly on top of the cab, and then I have a guitar tree next to me, Hercules guitar tree for the actual shows. And yeah, it's a great compact footprint, and it's not crazy loud either. Like with the 112 cab, it's quite directional, which is great because I angle it off to the side a little bit. So if you're looking out at the audience, I tend to angle it that way so it's not hitting the audience in the face, and the sound man's happy-ish. So that pretty much sums up my live rig and all its components and transport and things. I hope that's been of interest to not only the people that ask the questions, but you know, the normal viewing public out there. If you've got any further questions, let me know. Like I said, I'll link what gear I can find down in the description below. And yeah, you know, maybe this will give you an idea for how to set yours up. Again, like I always say, I'm far from an expert on this stuff, but this is just how I do it. Anyway, please like and subscribe if you dig this kind of thing, and I really hope to see you in another video. Cheers.